I haven't done an update on a walk in a long time. I'll just give you an update on what's going on with me. I feel a lot better. I still have some symptoms left over. One of those is post-traumatic stress. It's not all encompassing. It's probably would be considered subclinical, so, not really diagnosable. But the main thing about that is just sometimes I can't sleep. And so that's one of the main areas that I'm looking at right now. I still go for walks. I got caught up in life for a little bit there and didn't walk as much as I want to, but I'm back on track. And my goal is to walk every day, even if it's not the full distance that I have this idea about where I'm going to walk. And sometimes I only do about half, and sometimes it's less. It just depends. Emotionally, I feel pretty good. I kind of feel the stress of money and stuff like that right now. And so I'm trying to bring in some spiritual practices to just kind of let that go so that doesn't affect my body and my health. So just trying to do some relaxation meditation and just notice what my body's doing, like where I'm tense and where I'm holding things, that not necessarily tension, but just holding on to emotions and stuff like that. So that's the main stuff that I'm working on right now. The kids are doing really good. We decided to continue homeschooling through the summer since last year we didn't do as much of that as we normally would given the circumstances. We just decided to not stress ourselves out, not stress the kids out. So we did a lot more creativity probably than we would have had time for. So nothing lost there. I mean, we did a lot of painting, and my son got into clay, not Play-Doh, but clay, and that's been really interesting. My daughter's only 2.5, so her creating is fully just in the joy of it, which is the best, right? My wife has a radio show, and it seems like we're going to try to maybe co-create that coming up here soon, and kind of see where that leads us. I've been thinking about that a lot, so it just came in perfect timing that she was like, "Can you come help me on my show?" She does psychic readings. Basically, she's an intuitive counselor and a medium. And that's what she does on the show, is mostly takes calls. But when there's not calls, she needs content. And sometimes that's kind of stressful for her. So we're talking about maybe co-creating, and I'll do the content part. We'll see what happens with that. And we are also looking at future income sources and what that looks like. So I'll be going back to teaching pretty soon, and she may go back to her work. Her going back to her work is kind of just out of necessity. It's not really our goal or anything, but you have to do what you have to do when you have to do it. And so that's kind of where we are with that. Man, it is so hot in Florida. The other day I was thinking, gosh, it's really hot. I'll have to check the temperature. I went to the grocery store, and I was comfortable in the grocery store. That's my first sign that it's really hot. I usually feel a little cold. And when I came out, just walking to my car, putting my groceries in the car, and returning the cart, I was sweating. Not quite as bad as this, but my whole body was sweating, and I thought, man, it's hot. Then I was thinking high 80s, and it was 96 degrees with the feels like temperature was 110. I was like, oh yeah, that's part of it. Because I was thinking, man, I feel so sweaty. Not a surprise. I mean, we're in June. July is really hot. August and September are really hot. All 3 months just feels so hot. It's also very damp, most humid at that time. So we're getting to the hottest part of the year. It is the Sunshine State, though. It's very sunny, and we get rain most of the time. We've had a few days without rain, but then we had a really pretty big thunderstorm yesterday. So I was thinking about something else. I wanted to update you on what kind of self-care I'm doing. So obviously I'm walking and meditating, doing prayer. All the spiritual work is on par. I've got all that. But I'm also reading books to keep my mind present to good things. So these are books that are kind of teaching books, I guess you could say, for spiritual stuff for the most part. I'm reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, and I'm listening to a book called Wake Up to Sleep, and that book is about different practices you can do to help you sleep, and explains the whole sleep process, and it kind of goes through PTSD and stuff like that, and different things that keep us from sleeping. and goes far beyond the whole like sleep hygiene stuff. It goes into the deeper stuff, which I think is really helpful. So I'll let you know how those are when I'm done. All right, I remembered what I wanted to tell you. So for my self-care, I'm taking the same herbs that I took throughout chemo, which is one to help create blood and one to destroy phlegm, which is what we consider cancer to be. I still take those the same amount that I took back then. I'm still taking chlorophyll and spirulina. I got spirulina in tablet form now, and I'm much more consistent, and it's easier for me to take it that way. I try not to drink too much coffee or tea, like not too much caffeine. What I'm focused on right now is kind of, how do I help my nervous system? Because I can see that even before cancer and chemo, I was asking too much of my nervous system, just way too much stimulus and not enough rest. And so in the world of TCM, that would mean too much yang and not enough yin. Yin is rest and healing and nurture and nourish. Yang is activity and stimulation. So yeah, I was doing way too much and not enough rest, and I'm not willing to do that right now. I did do something called EVOX, and I talked about that previously, but it's kind of like high-tech energy work. It's so interesting. But there were some homeopathics recommended with that. Actually, it was Bush Flower Remedies, not Bach Flower, so in case you know what those are. And those are Australian. Same idea, same concept, and so interesting how those work. And this is like high vibration medicine, and so it affects the body in a different way than, say, taking an ibuprofen, because vibrationally it's going to help shift you. So that part's really interesting. You might be noticing different backgrounds. It's just because I'm recording as I think of things. So another thing is I chew my food ridiculous amounts. Like I've been doing that since the end of chemo, and I think it benefited my digestive system because, if you chew food to the point that it's really broken down, then your digestive system has less work to do. So it's really important, actually. I found it in a couple of, in one book in particular, where one doctor, that was one of his primary things, is to get people chewing their food a lot more. And so I chew until it's totally liquefied. And then the other thing is I try to not eat too much at any given meal or at any given day so that I don't overburden my system. So like yesterday, I ate a little too much at lunch. And so today I'm going to eat a little bit less to make sure that I don't overdo it. And of course, my sugar content's really low. I started baking so that I could use lower sugar for my kids. I don't eat too much baked stuff still because it's dry. And not just like, breads, but also if you bake meats and vegetables, they're dry. And so I'm just limiting that so that I have more fluids coming in from my foods rather than my foods needing fluids in order to be digested. Everything's in moderation. I'm starting to try out a little bit more raw food, and so far so good, so I'm happy about that. That means I can, maybe have a little bit of greens with a meal that are uncooked, or some fruit, which really just didn't get digested throughout chemo and for several months after chemo. So we'll just see what happens with that. And I'm happy to eat a little bit of fruit. Thank you for watching. I love you. May your life be wonderful.